Disney Villainous is probably one of my favorite board/card games, and I play it a lot with my friends and my brother. You play as different villains from the Disney animated movies, and each character has a specific goal required to win. For example, Captain Hook needs to defeat Peter Pan. Each villain has their own unique board and cards that they use to complete their goal. There are four basic types of cards: Ally, which the players can play to defeat heroes or gain an advantage; Effect, which is a one-time effect; Item, which are like allies but don't have strength; and Condition, which a player can play on an opponent's turn. To play a card, a player must pay the card's power cost in the top left. Each villain also has a fate deck that corresponds to their character, and this deck includes heroes and other cards that stop them from achieving their goal. Each player draws up to 4 cards, and gameplay starts by taking the character's token, moving it to a square, then performing the actions available on that square. The different actions are playing a card, moving an ally or item into a different square; gain power, move a hero; activate, which is activating an ability on an ally or item; discard, which is discard any cards in their hand that they currently don't want to use; vanquish a hero; and fading an opponent. In order to vanquish a hero, the player must use allies whose strength in the bottom left of the card is at least equal to the strength of the hero in the same area, and multiple allies can be used at once for a vanquish. Fading an opponent allows the player to draw 2 cards from that opponent's fate deck and play one of them. Heroes from the fate deck played to a location block the top actions of that location, and in order for the opponent to use those actions again, they must clear away the hero. During the player's turn, used cards such as effects that were played and allies used in a vanquish are discarded immediately, and at the end of the turn, they draw back up to 4 cards. That's essentially how gameplay works for Villainous, but keep in mind that some characters have unique gimmicks, such as starting with a lock token on their board, which prevents movement and playing cards at the location until the lock is cleared, and cards that don't fall into the basic 4. I probably played this game about 100 times, and after a while, I started to notice a trend that which some characters were usually better than others. So today I'm going to rank each of these characters based on my experience in a one-on-one setting. As of making this video, I only have the base game and the first 3 expansions, and that this is only my opinion, but without further ado, let's get started. Captain Hook's goal is to defeat Peter Pan at the Jolly Roger, which is the far left location on his board, and since Peter Pan can only be played to Hangman's Tree, this requires Hook to unlock the tree using the Neverland map, then move Peter Pan in order to defeat him. I rank Hook as an A-tier character for several reasons. One reason is that he can complete his goal during his turn, unlike other characters who can only win at the start of their turn. Also, Hook's deck focuses on finding Peter Pan with several cards such as Give Them a Scare, Obsession, and Worthy Opponent. Hook also has lots of allies, and probably his most useful ally is Boarding Party. Hook has 3 of these cards in a 40-card deck, and while 2 power for 2 strength might not seem that good, the fact that Boarding Party can vanquish heroes at adjacent locations is extremely strong. Hook also has items like Ingenious Device and Cannon, which give him extra actions during his turn, which just make him all that much better. Out of the base game, I consider Hook to be the strongest character. Queen of Hearts' goal is to have a wicket at each of the 4 locations on her board, then play and resolve Take the Shot. I consider Queen of Hearts to be an A-tier character, and while some consider her to be the best character, I am not one of them. Playing as and against her, I've never thought she was too strong, but she is still very good. The fact that 8 of her cards in a 30-card deck are card guards, it's not hard to access them and turn them into wickets, and since most of her cards are pretty cheap, resolving Take the Shot is easier than you might think. The only blowouts in her fate deck are Alice, Cheshire Cat, Dodo, and Down the Rabbit Hole. But since Queen of Hearts has so many allies in her deck, vanquishing heroes isn't hard. Also, she has 3 copies of Off With Your Head, so her fate deck doesn't affect her that much. She also isn't limited to having only 1 wicket per location, and the more wickets she has, the easier it is to resolve Take the Shot. She can win on her turn like Hook as well, so Queen of Hearts is definitely A-tier. Maleficent's goal is to start her turn with a curse at each of her 4 locations, and because of that, she has the first unique card type, Curses. I consider Maleficent to be C-tier, since she gets harder to play as the game goes on. Her green fire curse, which she has 3 of, restricts her movement, and being forced out of location is a severe detriment. Also, her cards are pretty expensive, so playing as Maleficent, you'll never have enough power to do everything you want. In order to win as Maleficent, you pretty much need Raven, her best card, since Raven gets her an extra action every turn, but unless you draw Raven at the start of the game, you are at a severe disadvantage. Maleficent's Fate deck is pretty strong as well, with 4 of the 15 cards being heroes of at least 4 strength, but Fauna and Flora have pretty bad abilities as well. Once Upon a Dream hurts too, since it gets rid of Maleficent's curses, so in order to win, Maleficent usually has to play her last 2 curses in one turn, and hope that our opponent isn't able to get rid of one of them, but getting rid of curses isn't really difficult. Prince John's goal is to start his turn with 20 power, and he can get power in different ways. Cards such as Beautiful Lovely Taxes and Warrants give him power when there are heroes on his board, and John can imprison them so they don't get in his way, as the jail doesn't have any actions on top to block. Wolf Archers are another powerful card, and they are like boarding party for Hook, since they allow vanquishing in adjacent locations. Prince John, I would say, is a pretty balanced character, so he is B tier. Not too strong, but not too weak either. His Fate deck is balanced as well, as his blowouts are Steal from the Rich, King Richard, Robin Hood, and Little John, but Prince John's allies can always keep them in check. The issue when playing against Prince John is a lot of his cards let him gain an advantage if he gets fated, as he has cards that give him more power if he vanquishes a hero or if a hero is played to his location. And even if it's not one of these, because he has so many strong allies, he can just get rid of the hero immediately and it hardly slows him down. To stop Prince John, you need to fade him at the beginning to stop him from accumulating too much power. Jafar's goal is to start his turn with the magic lamp at the Sultan's palace and have the genie under his control. Jafar is a B tier character as well, since he doesn't have any real weaknesses. Sure, he starts with a lock token on the Cave of Wonders at the beginning, but once he plays Scarab Pendant, the lock is removed, and Scarab Pendant gives him an extra card during each turn, and that is a huge advantage. Another reason Jafar is good is because of his Hypnotize effect. Being able to turn a hero into an ally is great, not only because it gives him another ally, but it stops a card from being used against him, and using Hypnotize will usually never cost more than 4 power. All these things sound good, but Jafar isn't A tier because his start is really slow. He will be low on power at the beginning of the game, and he can be slowed down even more if he is fated at the beginning of the game and a hero is placed on the streets of Agrabah. He really needs the Scarab Pendant to get rolling, but once he starts, he doesn't stop until the finish line. Ursula's goal is to start her turn with both the trident and the crown at Ursula's lair. Ursula is D tier, and she's definitely the worst character in the base game. She always has a lock token on her board, starting at the palace, and when she plays Change Form, the lock token moves to the lair, so she always has only 2 places she can go on any given turn. Ursula is pretty easy to stop as well, since if she gets fated early in the game, she has a hard time recovering. Ursula doesn't have any vanquish actions on her board, so to defeat heroes, she needs to play binding contracts to attach to the hero, and move that hero to the corresponding location for the contract. This means she can pretty much never defeat a hero in a single turn. I will say that the lock token can be used to Ursula's advantage, since when an area is locked, cards in that area cannot be affected. So Ursula can have the crown or trident at the lair, lock it up, and that way Ariel cannot take it. In general though, Ursula is just too slow and has too many things against her, so she's really hard to win with. Hades' goal is to start his turn with 3 Titans at Mount Olympus, and this means he has a unique card type, Titans. Titans work pretty much the same as allies in that they can be moved and used for vanquishing. However, Hades is E tier and arguably the worst character in the entire game. For one, his cards are way too expensive, so he is always short on power. Some of his cards are useless as well, like Achilles' Heel, which weakens a hero's strength by 2, but only for that turn, and I Rule, which is supposed to make up for the power shortage. But considering that Hades only has 1 copy of each ally and Titan in his deck, he most likely never discard them. If that were it, Hades would be somewhat salvageable, but his Fate deck is what really kills him. Practically every card in Hades' Fate deck is a blowout, because they not only restrict his Titans, but they also block his actions. And considering that almost half the cards in his deck are heroes, and there are 6 cards that affect his Titans, he is almost impossible to win with. In fact, I have never won a game as Hades because everything is stacked against him, and while he may be fun to play, he is complete garbage. Dr. Facilier's goal is to control the talisman and have Rule New Orleans in his fortune pile, then play The Cards Will Tell and reveal Rule New Orleans. How the fortune pile works is that some of Dr. Facilier's cards in both his deck and fate deck add cards to the fortune pile, and when he plays The Cards Will Tell, the cards revealed do their fortune effects instead of their normal effects. Dr. Facilier is easily S tier and probably the best character in the game. In fact, when I play Villainous with people, we agree not to play Dr. Facilier because he is too easy to win with. All of his allies are really cheap for their strength, and none of the cards in his fate deck really hurt him. The only way to stop Dr. Facilier is to add cards to his fortune pile, but he has cards of his own that clear the fortune pile, and since the Cards Will Tell reveal 3 cards, the pile will also empty on its own. It is also possible for Dr. Facilier to win on his second or third turn, if he has the right card combination, since he really only needs 3 cards to win: Talisman, Rule New Orleans, and Cards Will Tell. And with Kane, that makes things even easier since it gives him an extra action. There are some villains that come close to Dr. Facilier's power, but none of them equal him due to how strong he is. Evil Queen's goal is to kill Snow White, and she does this by using her unique action, Brew Poison, then playing Take a Bite. I would say Evil Queen is an A tier character, since she is one of those characters that gets pretty hard to stop. She starts with a lock token on her board at the Dwarf's Cottage, and this is removed by playing 4 different ingredients, Evil Queen's unique card type. Unlike with how Peter Pan is forced to be played, Snow White is not, but Evil Queen can find Snow White on her own with Magic Mirror, and Snow White only has 4 base power. Since the only limit for how much poison the Queen can brew is limited by her amount of power, Evil Queen will soon stockpile at least 5 poison, with that number growing almost every other turn. There's nothing in her fate deck that reduces her amount of poison significantly, and although each of the dwarves makes Snow White stronger, only Doc really slows Evil Queen down. Evil Queen's items are strong as well, as Magic Tomes lets her cycle through her deck, Mirror gives her an advantage to being fated, the box gives her extra power, and the throne gives her extra poison. Evil Queen is only limited by the lock token at the beginning, and how she only has 4 Take a Bite cards in her deck, but because of how quickly she can cycle through her deck, those things are barely weaknesses. So, Evil Queen is definitely one of the top characters. Scar's goal is to have heroes totaling at least 15 power in the succession pile, and this means he has a unique gimmick, the succession pile. How it works is that after Scar defeats Mufasa, the succession pile is started, and each hero defeated after this goes into the succession pile, instead of the fate discard pile. Scar is an E tier character and extremely hard to win with, although I have done it a couple of times. His cards revolve around hyenas, which gets stronger as more at the same location, and going through his fate deck to find Mufasa. His cards aren't that bad, but he has 2 things that really hurt him. The first is that on his board, there is only 1 vanquish action, and this is a huge detriment. Since Scar needs to vanquish in order to win, being able to advance his objective once every 2 turns is a big handicap, especially if the game is in the final stretch where every move matters. Sure, he has Stampede, which adds a vanquish action, but Scar only has 2 of these in his deck. The other thing that hurts is the Hakuna Matatas in his fate deck. Being able to play a hero from the succession pile is huge, even if it is strength 3 or less, because all but 2 of the heroes in his fate deck have strength 3 or less. This means that in order to win, Scar must have a succession pile of at least 18 to be safe, because there are 3 Hakuna Matatas in a 15 card deck, and with each hero added to the succession pile, those odds only go up. Scar just doesn't hold a candle to most of the other characters in this game, and is one of the hardest characters to play as. Ratigan is unique in that he has 2 goals. The first is to get the Robot Queen to Buckingham Palace, and if the Queen is discarded, his goal changes to defeating Basil in order to win. I consider Ratigan an S tier character for several reasons. One of his best cards is Ruffians, which allows him an extra action each time he plays one. This card is very good because of that, and that Ratigan has 3 of them in his deck. Almost all of Ratigan's cards are cheap as well, varying between 0 to 3 cost, except for the Robot Queen, but playing the Queen is pretty easy, since he has so many cards that lower the cost. In fact, Tools is another one of his amazing cards, since it reduces the cost of all his items by 1, so most of his items become free. Ratigan is also able to move the Robot Queen every turn, since he has 2 move actions on his board, so once he plays it, it is a 3-turn clock until he wins. If the opponent is able to play Basil, the Queen is discarded, but that is barely even a hindrance. His objective changes to defeating Basil, and by this point in the game, Ratigan will have enough allies to do this with ease, most likely on his next turn. One other thing that is a big advantage is the fact that 3 of the cards in Ratigan's Fate deck are Queen's Guards. In all my games involving Ratigan, the guards were never defeated because there was no point to them. There was never really a reason to clear the top 2 spaces at the palace or move the guards, since it was just more important to move other heroes. So 20% of his Fate deck is completely useless. Another thing that makes Ratigan so good is he has 3 capture cards. Capture lets him move a hero with strength 3 or less to the secret lair, and the secret lair doesn't have any actions to be blocked. Since most of the heroes in Ratigan's Fate deck don't have effects that really hurt him, pretty much a capture is pretty much a free vanquish. Ratigan just has everything going for him and is one of the hardest characters to win against, period. Yzma's objective is to defeat Kuzco using her main ally, Kronk. Kronk is special in that he is a 3-cost, 6-strength ally and doesn't get discarded if he's used for a vanquish, so Kronk is supposed to be used to defeat everyone. I consider Yzma to be a B-tier character, and I'm not going to rank her any higher because she is completely luck-based. Her special gimmick is that she has 16 cards in her Fate deck instead of 15, and they are divided into 4 equal piles, and when she gets fated, the opponent picks up a pile and chooses to play any card from it. Since her goal is to find Kuzco, Yzma has cards that search the piles for him, but because of that, it depends on luck. She can win easily if she finds Kuzco early, but can also lose if he keeps moving around. Sure, Yzma has cards that search her Fate decks, but these can easily backfire if Kuzco gets discarded or other heroes get revealed. Yzma also plays slow until she finds Kronk, but Right-Hand Man helps with this. Since Kronk is expected to do everything, moving him around can be a pain, since he can be turned against Yzma if he's moved too much, and if there are heroes on opposite sides of the board, it makes playing as her difficult. Playing a game with Yzma means that she is a ticking clock, and she will win if the clock runs out, as usually each turn she will thin the piles, and this means you have either plenty of time to defeat her or no time at all. Again, it all comes down to luck. Cruella's goal is to start her turn with at least 99 captured puppies, and so she has puppy tokens as her gimmick. Each location on her board has 3 tokens, 2 11 tokens and 1 22 token, and to capture a token she must first place it on the board, then capture it, using cards like Flashlight, bought and paid for, and her 2 allies, Horus and Jasper. I would say Cruella is a D-tier character, which is unfortunate because she is also my favorite character to play. One thing I immediately notice about her is that she is always poor when it comes to power to play her cards. Only one location on her board gives more than 1 power, and one location doesn't give her anything. She is supposed to use I Live for Furs to fix this. Before that, she needs to have puppy tokens on the board. Cruella's cards are cheap, which is a plus, but it still doesn't fix how limited she will be at the start and throughout the game. The other thing about Cruella is she plays extremely slow because, as mentioned before, she needs to place the token, then capture it to advance her goal, and at most she can only place 2 and or capture 3 tokens at a time. Her Fate deck can also slow Cruella down considerably, since there are several cards that either put captured puppy tokens all the way back to the supply, or from the board to the supply. Like with Scar, Cruella will need to create a buffer with her goal, so that even if she gets fated, she will still win on her next turn, so it helps to capture extra puppy tokens. Unfortunately, this also means she is hard to win with, and just doesn't measure up to a lot of other characters. Pete's goal is to actually complete 4 different goals, 1 at each location, and randomly chosen out of 5 possible goals. This also means that Pete is a luck-based character, since some goals are easier to complete, depending on where they are located on the board. For example, Strike It Rich, starting his turn with at least 3 items at the location, is easier if it is located on the middle locations, since each of Pete's 4 item cards must be played as a specific location, and moved to complete the goal. Although I ranked Yzma lower for being luck-based, I rank Pete as A tier since his luck mechanics are less impactful than hers and his cards are better. For one, Pete has several cycling cards, and this lets him go through his deck quickly in order to find the ones that help his goals. His allies are good too, like how Horse can move an item or ally anywhere on his board to make his goals easier, and Parrot can take any card from the discard and add it back to his hand. One of Pete's best cards is Airstrike, a 3-cost card that instantly defeats a hero at any strength with no downside at all. In his Fate deck, Mickey Mouse is the only card that stops Pete completely, but having Airstrike gets rid of him really fast. None of the other Fate deck cards affect him that badly either, and because of the large number of cheap allies, Pete can handle them easily and consistently. Pete is another one of those characters I don't like to play with due to his strength, but sometimes he can be defeated depending on what goals he has. Gothel's goal is to start her turn with at least 10 trust, kept track by power tokens, and she gains and loses trust depending on what cards are played. Gothel is also unique in that she always has a hero on her board, Rapunzel, and at the end of each turn, Rapunzel moves one location to the right. I would rank Gothel as a C-tier character, since she's not bad, but needs to be played correctly in order to win. The first thing Gothel needs is a reliable way to gain trust, and that is what the hairbrush is for, and cards like I Love You Most and Revenge. The second thing Gothel needs is a way to manage Rapunzel, since Gothel will lose one trust for every turn Rapunzel is at Corona, and that's what cards like Royal Guards, Mother Knows Best, and Let Down Your Hair are for. Having to constantly manage Rapunzel as well as gain trust can be difficult, so Gothel needs to be careful with her cards and make every one count, but if played correctly, she can gain trust each turn, sometimes more than one at a time. Gothel's Fate deck can definitely cause her to struggle with cards like Pascal and Floating Lights, which help Rapunzel move, but also Everyone Has a Dream and Flynn Rider, which steal Gothel's trust. Pascal can be especially detrimental since he makes Rapunzel take only 2 turns to get to Corona instead of 3, and should be a priority for vanquishing. Overall, Gothel is a somewhat decent character, but needs to be played strategically because of how much the player needs to be aware of when playing as her. Overall, this is my final ranking for each character in the base game and the first 3 expansions, and again, this is based on my personal experience playing as and against each character. I recommend Villainous to anyone who's a fan of Disney and looking for a fun competitive game they can enjoy with their friends and family, because with such a variety of characters, games are always different. Keep in mind this is only my opinion, and I'll see you next time for another one.